Okay, they can't find me here. No one can find me here. I'm safe. I'm safe.
You're so sure about that, pal?
What? No. Pooh? Bambi? No, not you two, Mickey, not you.
And this is just the beginning, haha. Just you wait until my friends show up.
No! Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, the show that is continuing to ruin childhoods both old and new. So, did you hear about this movie where Mickey Mouse goes on a killing spree?
Where the hell did he go?
Yeah, this is a very real movie called Mickey's Mousetrap, and as of the time of writing, it's supposed to release in early April. We'll see if that actually happens. So, how the heck is this a thing? How could Disney let this clear ripoff slip through the cracks? And how have they not sued these filmmakers into oblivion for misusing their primary mascot? Well, we actually explain exactly how in a video from last year about another of Disney's characters turned movie monster, Winnie the Pooh. So go check that out if you want the full story. But the long and short of it, Steamboat Willie, the cartoon that featured the original appearance of Mickey Mouse, has now entered the public domain here in the United States, so everyone owns Steamboat Willie and all of its characters, with some pretty significant caveats. Again, go watch that older theory where we explain everything in detail. It's something we're going to be seeing a lot more of in the coming decade as more and more of these pillars of pop culture start entering the public domain. And just to be clear, overall, this is a major win for all of us. Art was never meant to forever be the property of corporate overlords. After a reasonable period, it's supposed to belong to everyone so that it can be remixed and reimagined and turned into something new and exciting. Exactly like how Disney themselves made their name back when Walt was turning fairy tales into kids' cartoons. But for now, this means that anyone, including you right there at home, can take Mickey Mouse and do whatever you want with him. Sure, that could mean using him in your new American classic novel or tasteful painting, but it could also mean using him in your very own low-budget horror movie like Mickey's Mousetrap, or a scary video game, or another scary video game, or Last Week Tonight with John Oliver.
You're not special. Nothing about you is special.
Ugh, spooky. Though I'm not sure anything could be just how horrifying Mickey Mouse was the first time he appeared in live action. Regardless, this is a weird phenomenon, these classic cartoon characters being transformed into these grotesque horror movie monsters and serial killer slashers. Like, I get it, it makes sense, don't get me wrong. The sheer novelty of characters like Mickey being twisted into the stuff of nightmares will get butts in seats. That's why you're seeing so many of these low-budget horror movies starring characters like Mickey, Winnie the Pooh, or Bambi pop up. But today, I do have a question about all of this. Is Mickey Mouse actually the best choice for this? If we wanted to actually make a good horror film, is he the character from the classic cast of the Mickey and Friends canon that should be taking center stage? When you break down what actually works in scary cinema, which of Walt's creations would actually be the most effective mass murderer on Main Street, USA? Who would be the best Disney movie monster? Prepare those fast passes, friends. Let's dive into the magic and find out. And speaking of classic, iconic characters, you don't get more classic or iconic than Godzilla and Kong. And I had the opportunity to do an officially licensed collection of apparel with Legendary Entertainment based on their new film Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. Yeah, you heard that right. I got to help design and create official apparel with the people who actually made the movie. And dude, getting to make things I can actually wear on my body based on some truly legendary cinema icons is just incredible. It was too hard to choose which character we liked more, so in traditional kaiju fashion, we decided to pit the two against each other. We have matching hoodies based on Godzilla and Kong, so you can go choose your favorite and show your allegiance to either titan. Or if you can't choose between them, you can also have them team up, just like they do in the movies. We have this super rad reversible jacket that's faux leather on one side representing the king of the monsters and fleece on the other representing the eighth wonder of the world. So if you want to show your love for either of these iconic kaiju from the Monsterverse, go pre-order our officially licensed apparel. Again, that is so freaking awesome, over on theorywear.com. But now, back to the episode. So how are we going to be measuring this? Well, after watching a lot of horror films, I've narrowed down what makes a good scary movie villain down to three main pillars. First, what's the potential for their unique design? You can recognize recognize many of the best horror monsters and villains at a glance. The Xenomorph, Samara, even Michael Myers with his Bill Shatner mask. You see these guys, and you instantly know who they are and what their deal is. So which of these Disney characters can get us that same effect? Secondly, we'll want to look for memorable powers or abilities. What sets these monsters apart from the rest of the pack? Freddy Krueger can kill you in your dreams. Pennywise can weaponize and feed on your fear. Both owe a lot of their longevity to those powers. And thirdly, we're going to look at the character's ability to act as a commentary on what society fears. The best horror films have villains that are born of what our culture is collectively afraid of. The Thing might be the best example I can think of, exploiting Cold War era distrust of your neighbor or stranger danger to create a true S-tier level film. If our Disney monster can recapture just a fraction of that dark magic, we are golden, or bloody. I'm not sure which is preferable in this situation. On top of that, we'll also be measuring the characters in a fourth category, their importance to Disney. This will act as a gauge of how much of a draw this character will be in today's pop culture, because if we're making a public domain horror movie ripoff, we want people to actually see it. Now, with these four categories laid out, we'll be going through each of them and rating the characters out of 4. At the end, we'll tally up each score and see who wins. Which brings me to, who are our contenders? Well, just so we aren't going way overboard here and talking about like 25 different characters, we're gonna have to be a little judicious about who we talk about. Obviously, we have to put Mickey Mouse himself in the ring, as well as Donald Duck and Goofy, who make up Disney's big 3. We're also gonna bring in Mickey's original nemesis Pete, as well as Clarabelle Cow and Horace Horsecollar in a single entry. Both of those characters actually predate some of the main Mickey cast and have very similar roles and abilities in the early cartoons, thus them being just a single entry. And finally, we're also going to include Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, who you probably know best from the cult classic video game Epic Mickey. Oswald was Walt Disney's actual first cartoon character before he made Mickey, but whom he lost ownership of due to murky contracts. And fun fact, Disney wanted the rights back so badly that the company traded an actual, real human being, sportscaster Al Michaels, in exchange for Oswald back in 2006. You cannot make this up. Now, you might have noticed some pretty big omissions there, like Minnie Mouse, Daisy Duck, and Pluto. Sadly, they didn't make the cut for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Pluto's pretty much just a dog, something pretty common in horror cinema, while Minnie and Daisy are basically just female versions of Mickey and Donald. We didn't want to retread the same ground, and they don't bring a whole lot new to the table. Hey, don't blame me, blame Disney. And as for other, more obscure characters, if part of the reason that they're being strip-mined for these public domain horror movies is the novelty of seeing a popular cartoon character do murder, I'm not sure we're gonna get the same sort of draw from Mortimer Mouse, the Mad Doctor, or the Phantom Blot. Ha-cha-cha! And finally, with all of that setup out of the way, let's dive into things. First up, Disney's OG villain, Pete. Now, modern versions of Pete are supposed to be a cat, but you look at this thing and you tell me it's a cat. Like, maybe it's a Maine Coon? He always looked more like a bear to me, personally, but that confusion could make for a fun monster design. Additionally, for a while there, the character was known as Peg Leg Pete, and combined with his original steamboat pilot persona, that could give us a really strong visual identity, like a pirate bear cat. So a solid 3 out of 4 for unique design. Other early versions of the character saw Pete take on various professions, a hunter-trapper, an athlete, an Old West desperado, you get the idea. He's sort of all over the place. But all in all, Pete was very strong, so a horror version of that character should definitely work with that. And Pete's roots as a feline also help him from a speed standpoint. Yeah, despite his bulk, Pete has usually been depicted as shockingly agile, able to keep up with the likes of Mickey. But that being said, strong thing that moves fast isn't exactly breaking new ground. Pete would basically just be a furry Michael Myers, so 1 out of 4 when it comes to unique powers. Pete's ability to act as commentary is also a bit shaky, like he's a bad guy who would become a slasher bad guy. I guess we could go with the whole misunderstood monster angle, but at max, that gives him a 2 out of 4 for the commentary. commentary. And finally, Pete's importance to Disney is also a bit lacking. I would argue that as Mickey's main rival, he's a bit more significant than, like, Pluto, but not by much. So 2 out of 4 there, leaving Pete with a total of 8 out of 16. Middle of the road, but we can do better. Like, maybe with Horace Horsecollar and Clarabelle Cow. Let me ask you, do you know what's fascinating about these two? Absolutely nothing. Not a gosh darn thing. In fact, I'm betting that some of you only just now found out that these characters even exist because of this video. So right up front there, they're both getting a 1 out of 4 for importance to Disney. They're more likely to show up at a bar trivia night than a mainline Disney product at this point. But do you know what's mildly interesting about Horace Horsecollar and Clarabelle Cow, and why I wanted to talk about them today? They're two of just very few characters in the Mickey and Friends canon that have been shown to walk both upright and on all fours in the same cartoon. Yeah, Horace and Clarabelle straight up shapeshift. Ever since their early appearances in cartoons like 1928's The Plowboy, Horace and Clarabelle could full-on transform from a normal 4-legged cartoon animal to a humanoid, upright walking, talking person at will. Their front hooves even morph into gloved hands. Now that's really cool in concept and gives both of these characters a real leg up in both potential for unique design and memorable powers. Seriously, imagine some crazy cow or horse-shaped monster that could twist and morph its body, bones cracking and skin tearing as it turns into a humanoid, a la The Thing. So right there for me, that's a solid 3 for unique design and a 4 for memorable powers. Basically, this one fact put these characters in contention today. And just to put a cap on things, there's also some great potential for commentary on how our reliance on these sorts of domesticated beasts of burden is turning the tables for us as humans. That could even fit super well with these two kind of turning into humanoid characters. So for commentary, they're also getting a 3 out of 4. Honestly, a surprisingly strong showing from Horace and Clarabelle with 11 out of 16. Even if their lack of importance to pop culture really hurt them in this scenario. So what about Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Disney's original main character? Believe it or not, but there were almost 200 Oswald shorts back in the 20s and 30s, but sadly he never really took off in the same way later characters like Mickey would. And eventually Oswald got revamped into almost a totally different character in comic books in the 50s before vanishing entirely in the 60s. Why? Well, a guy named Oswald killed the president, and suddenly Oswald was not a very popular name. I don't have a joke here. Sometimes reality is just stranger than fiction. In any case, Oswald, the rabbit, not the assassin, was basically an economy model Mickey Mouse and a pretty basic cartoon character. And I fear that this would transfer to any horror movie version of him too. It would basically just turn into another spoopy man in a rubber rabbit mask a la Mickey Mouse Trap or Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. So 1 out of 4 in potential for unique design. Additionally, this whole aspect of being forgotten to time is a bit of a double-edged sword here for Oswald in our horror scenario. On the one hand, there's a potential for a really good story about a forgotten character coming back and forcing himself to be remembered by going on a murder rampage, especially in this era where companies like Disney have monetized every bit of our collective nostalgia. But on the other hand, well, even if the Disney corporate machine wanted Oswald back, he disappeared from history for a long time and basically nobody cared. So a solid 3 out of 4 for potential for commentary, but a paltry 1 out of 4 for his importance to Disney. As for his unique powers, here's where Oswald really shines, because his main power is literally in his name. Oswald, the Lucky Rabbit. There hasn't ever really been a horror movie monster that has weaponized luck, and there's a ton of potential there for something really clever and unique. Like, just imagine a monster that could cause some sort of Final Destination-esque Rube Goldberg machine of death just by tweaking the luck of its victims. So Oswald gets a 4 in this category for a total of 9 out of 16. Respectable, but sadly not quite enough to squeak past fellow forgotten Disney characters Horace and Clarabelle. Truly tragic. But enough beating around the bush, let's get to the big leagues, starting with Mickey himself. Now, let's get the obvious out of the way. It's Mickey freaking Mouse. He's gonna have a 4 in importance to Disney category. And people would want to watch a horror movie starring him. There's a reason so many horror film versions of the character are being rushed out. Mickey is a character that holds a special place in pop culture, which I would say also gives him a serious edge in the character's ability to act as commentary. Because Mickey is so synonymous with Disney, there's a lot you can say about that company and what they represent. Taking well-known IP and manufacturing new content that sells nostalgia more than originality and turn it into a powerful story. And all of that without even touching Mickey's origins as a trickster, which could also become a great story element in and of itself. So again, 4 out of 4 when it comes to commentary. Additionally, I would argue that Mickey also gets a bump in the unique design area simply because the character itself is so recognizable. The sheer novelty of horror Mickey, the family-friendly character turned murderous psychopath, really helps Mickey stand out in unique design where characters like Oswald suffered, earning him a 3 out of 4. However, when it comes to memorable abilities, Mickey struggles a little bit. See, he was the underdog in many of his classic cartoons, outsmarting opponents like Pete with his trickster instincts instead of overpowering them. That being said, mice are known to be very quick and stealthy, and Mickey himself knows his way around a rifle and has demonstrated handy skills as a swordsman, which could translate pretty well into a prototypical slasher villain, you know, basically exactly what we see in Mickey's Mousetrap. That being said, the thing that keeps Mickey from getting a 1 here, his potential in the near future. See, Fantasia was released in 1940, which means that it will also be in the public domain in the foreseeable future, meaning that there's a world where Mickey is getting legit magical powers in these horror movies. And you know, by that point, I'm sure we're gonna have so many freaking horror movies with this character that it's gonna make Jason in space look reasonable. So, Magic Mickey, yeah, that checks out, and it could be scary, so 2 out of 4 for unique powers. Either way, this leaves Mickey in a great position at the head of the pack here with 13 out of 16 points. But is the mouse the head honcho? Next up, the character that might be Mickey's main competition here, Donald Duck. Let's not mince words here. Donald is the only of Disney's characters whose personality would need